Don't end up here.
The Portal games have always been kinda joined at the hip with horror. Like, sure, the games are mostly focused on comedy, but both of the games, and especially the first Portal, have some legitimately unnerving moments. I mean, on paper, the Portal 1 plot reads as straight horror. You've got this evil sociopathic AI that killed everyone in the science facility, all the while this random schizophrenic guy stalks you, and then the evil robot tries to kill you and you have to escape. Like, what a great comedy, right? There's this video series I love that really captures the creepy side of Portal in a very unique way called Alone at the Enrichment Center. It perfectly gets that lonely, unusual fever dream vibe that's common in liminal space images, for example. This is how Portal 1 makes me feel at times. But aside for this video series, it's fairly rare to see high-quality Portal content that leans into this kind of horror that is present in the first game. Hell, it's pretty rare to see any kind of horror media capture this sort of tone effectively. It's insanely difficult to pull off and requires a lot of restraint, focusing on the atmosphere above everything else. And most horror media just isn't interested in doing that. Error is a very popular Portal 1 horror mod that gets so close to getting it right, but it just doesn't do it for me. The mod has some individual moments that I really like, capturing that off liminal space, elegiac vibe, but it kind of ruins it by going a little too deep into video cliches. So we got the old, ooh, look, the game is glitching, things aren't working as intended, the lighting is messed up, these props don't have shadows disabled. Okay, that one actually is pretty scary. Also, while I won't spoil anything for you, I will say that the ending is pretty underwhelming and it doesn't really feel like the mod builds to anything particularly interesting. And honestly, other than that, there isn't a whole lot else out there. There's some interesting Portal 2 workshop maps that lean into horror, but in a different kind of way to what I'm talking about, a little more in your face and direct with it, which isn't necessarily a bad way to approach horror, it's just a different one and not really what I'm looking for. However, there is one mod that manages to get this balance nearly perfect. And the strange part is, it wasn't really even intended as a horror mod, at least not in the explicit sense. Portal the Flash version Mappack is a very early collection of Portal 1 maps created by We Create Stuff in 2008. If you didn't know, that's the team behind Nightmare House, a Half-Life 2 horror mod, which is pretty fitting in my opinion. It was primarily made to sort of port the puzzles from Portal the Flash version, which was this 2D side-scrolling Portal fan game created by the same team around the time Portal 1 released. The author created this whole alternate take on the Portal 1 storyline, including their own escape sequence and behind-the-scenes areas, and with that a slightly different tone. And this is what's most relevant to us right now, because they really went all out on these sections that weren't in the original Portal Flash version. At this time, Portal had only been around for so long, and there really wasn't a clear rulebook as to how to make Portal maps as there is now. Because of this, when they could, the developers leaned a little more into Half-Life 2 than the original Portal did, which resulted in this slightly grittified version of Portal 1 that I honestly kind of love. So let's go through it and let's see what makes it so goddamn creepy. Alright, so we start off pretty similar to Portal 1. We've got the relaxation vault, we get the portal gun, head out, do some basic early test chambers, nothing special. But even through these early tests, we start to notice that something is very off. This version of the Enrichment Center is kind of just falling apart.
The Enrichment Center apologizes for this clearly broken test chamber.
It's not quite the overgrown style that we see in Portal 2, but there's definitely more destruction here than in Portal 1. And sure, this is a subtle detail. It's not Freddy Krueger running at you with the chainsaw, but it gives you an immediate sense that something is very wrong here, and creates this really unique atmosphere that I just haven't seen replicated in any other Portal media. So we get through some of the early tests, we enter into this room, and oh okay, something's happening. We've got this crusher coming down on us, so we portal over to the other side, but there's another crusher, and the exit is locked. Thankfully, someone broke this wall apart over here, just enough to send a portal through. And then we get stuck in this room, which also has a crusher, and we'd be completely unable to escape if it wasn't for this little recess in the wall that we can place a portal on, and ride it up to escape into the back areas of the facility. I find this really interesting because in the original Portal game, GLaDOS puts you in dangerous situations, but only really tries to kill you towards the end of the game. However, this room would absolutely be unsolvable if it weren't for us escaping in unintended ways, which certainly implies that her intention was to kill you, But then when you return to the test chamber, she just acts normal, like she doesn't even care that you escaped.
Well done. Be advised that the next test requires exposure to uninsulated electrical parts.
I don't know, there's something to be said for Portal 1's kind of slower burn, no pun intended, which takes pretty much the whole game to get to the point where GLaDOS is actively antagonistic to the player. But I still think this is a really unique take on the Portal 1 story, and the choice to show these cards so early on makes the rest of the mod feel just a bit more disconcerting. Oh yeah, this mod has a fucking jump scare in it, kinda. That, you know, give me a little break. As you might be able to expect based on the fact that this is a Portal 1 mod, eventually we get the companion cube. We use it to, you know, block energy pellets, knock out turrets, hold down buttons, the usual stuff, until we get to this moving platform here. So we ride down this dark platform, listening to the distorted radio music. Nothing much happening yet, until...
Hello, friend.
We're ambushed by turrets on both sides. This section is actually kind of hard. You're getting shot at from all kinds of different directions, and if you or the cube manages to fall off the small platform, that's it, you're dead. It really contrasts with the peppy, upbeat radio version of Still Alive, which I find kind of cool. At one point, on our way to the next chamber, the door breaks down and we get stuck.
Time out for a second. That wasn't supposed to happen.
Another indication that this version of the Enrichment Center is just absolutely falling apart. But this Ratman marking leads us over to this wall over here, which we can break our way through. As a side note, I've always found this super satisfying for some reason. Being able to pull apart the metal wall like Legos is just really cool. But anyways, we're back in the behind the scenes areas and we climb up this vent here to see the Borealis, in this huge dock that seems to stretch off infinitely into the darkness. From a lore perspective, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense why it would be here. I mean, the whole point of the Borealis is that it was this aperture science ship that magically disappeared and ended up in the Arctic for the Resistance and Half-Life 2 to discover. But if we put that aside, it's a really neat and kind of creepy little moment, helped by the fantastic Portal 1 soundtrack. I don't know, I like it. So we fall through the vent and end up in this little area here. One of the doors is locked, so we enter into the other one and get a better view of the Borealis. On this computer thing, we have all these schematics of the Borealis being displayed. Then we leave and wait, wasn't that door closed before? So we go into this room and it is absolutely trashed. Something awful happened here. We have all these markings on the wall which could be old, but they also could have been drawn by whoever opened that door for us. Regardless, whoever opened it must have been in quite a rush because all the other doors are still half open. This area is one of the creepiest in the game to me. The Portal 1 behind the scenes areas definitely had an empty and uncomfortable feeling to it, but this area really amps it up to 11, leaving the space with a clear indication of a human presence, but none to be found in sight, which really emphasizes that something horrible must have happened and we don't know what's gonna be around the next corner. We break back into the test chambers to go solve our last batch of puzzles, and now GLaDOS offers us cake, but big surprise, it's just a trick and she tries to kill us. Then we go off and escape back into the behind the scenes areas. But like with the rest of the mod, these areas are still a little different than how they appeared in Portal 1, leaning a little bit more into Half-Life 2 assets and design cues. Like these strange and really cool Aperture Science branded trucks, or this puzzle that requires you to open up a garage door. Like, these are things you would never see in the original Portal, and it's so cool that they're here. Coming up through the drain, we end up in this really cool bathroom, kind of hacked together in the level editor with a bunch of brushes, creating this really unique and kind of uncomfortable atmosphere that I just love. Not too far away from that bathroom, we have this ominous room, and as we enter, we see the biggest and most unnerving secret of the entire mod. We have these stasis chambers holding clones of us, presumably just waiting to be tested, so that even if we die or we escape, GLaDOS still has plenty more versions of us to test and kill, which is pretty dark for the Portal universe. I mean, even if we do manage to get out of the facility, have we really escaped? We have these surgical tables off to the left, which have quite a lot of blood on them, kind of implying that, whatever she does to these clones, it's not pretty. So yeah, GLaDOS is pretty pissed off at us right now. We go into this room and holy fucking shit, what the hell? So yeah, instead of having like a traditional GLaDOS boss fight, I guess the mod author decided to do something a little different and made this like crazy brush monster. I have no idea how the fuck this thing works, and honestly, I don't want to know. But I think it's pretty fucking cool. And it's honestly kind of terrifying having this thing chase you down these hallways. I mean, granted, the thing is very slow. If you really know how to play Portal at all, you can outrun it. But being chased by something is not a common feeling in the Portal games, and I'll be honest, I've played this mod a billion times, and every time this thing shows up, I'm like, go, 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 go! So we keep running away from the Aperture Science Super Mech, which is actually what the mod calls it. And we end up in this parking garage. And as with many of the other places before, this space has a really unique vibe to it. It's so realistic and utilitarian for a location in Aperture. Like, yeah, they would need to have a parking garage, it makes a lot of sense. And the location has all the markings and signage you would expect from a real parking garage. You've got the no parking bumpers lifted straight from Counter-Strike source, handicap parking, and exit signs. Despite feeling a little under-detailed, it really makes an effort to appear like a real location. I don't know, it kind of feels like this location and many of the others in this mod are like the hyper-realistic Mr. Incredible of Portal, if that makes any sense. But anyway, we don't have too much time to sit here and admire the parking garage, because eventually that robot comes in and starts blasting us with energy pellets. We have to pick up wooden boxes scattered throughout the map and deflect the pellets back at him, which is either really easy or really difficult depending on how lucky you get with the angle the energy pellets deflect at. Once you've hit the mech 3 times, he blows up and the screen goes white. When we wake up, everything is destroyed, including our portal gun, and GLaDOS ultimately decides to set us free, but before she does, she gives us a warning.
Are you trying to escape? Things have changed since the last time you left the building. What's going on out there will make you wish you were back in here. I have an infinite capacity for knowledge, and even I'm not sure what's going on outside. All I know is I'm the only thing standing between us and them.
So we walk out through the exit and finally escape into the daylight. But off in the distance, we hear the sound of something, and as it approaches, and it reveals itself to be a fucking Half-Life 2 gunship. What a fucking way to end the mod. But yeah, that's Portal the Flash version Mappack. A really cool and unique and creepy early Portal 1 mod. So I've just gushed about this mod for a while, but I will say, it's not perfect. A lot of this mod's level design is just all over the place. Towards the beginning, it kind of works, but as the mod goes along, it has to adhere to these like 2D puzzles, which don't really translate very well into 3D. You just get very lost and confused with all these tiny little rooms connected by these small holes to send portals through. Like, the final test chamber of this mod is on paper really easy, but it took me forever to solve it just because it takes so long to figure out where you are in relation to everything. This is definitely an issue with a lot of early Portal 1 mods. Portal Prelude definitely had this problem, if you, remember that one. But since it's based on these 2D puzzles, I guess I can give it a little bit of a pass. It's at least understandable why this happened. There's some weird player direction in here too, like it took me so long to figure out that you're supposed to fling yourself up into this cube dropper. Like, that's not something we've ever done in Portal before, and it doesn't really make it very clear that that's what it wants you to do. Also, either the beginning of the escape section is way harder than it needs to be, or I'm doing something very wrong. I have no idea. But overall, I think this mod captures a really unique tone, a really unique version of Portal 1 that most mods just can't capture. Anyways, that's pretty much all I have to say about this mod. If you want to play it, it's still very easy to find on We Create Stuff's website, which is really cool considering the company has now gone on to much bigger, fully standalone games like In Sound Mind and a remake of the aforementioned Nightmare House mod. So hats off to them for that. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little exploration of a classic Portal 1 mod.